In this video, I approached rust and fire damage for the first time, and these are both interesting, particularly rust and refinishing hands, which were damaged by fire, are really interesting to me because in very old watches, that's something that has to be tackled a lot, and I wanted to get my hands around it. And these watches were great because basically fire damage accelerates age damage in terms of rapid oxidation of things. So before I do really old vintage watches, I thought that this would be a great project to learn some of the advanced techniques on. In spite of these being relatively newer watches, that was a great aspect of this work. Plus, learning how to restore fire damaged watches is a valuable thing. So a friend in the US gave me these watches to try to restore because they were damaged in a fire, and because the Pierre Kunz is a Swiss watchmaker based in Geneva, we thought that I probably could get parts easier here if I need them than in the US. And their total loss in terms of the fire damage. So what I'm going to try to do is clean the cases first, and then I've been practicing bluing hands and polishing and all these things that would allow me to restore for example, this one had water damage on the hands. And I think, unfortunately, it probably has water damage in the movement. This one is actually working, and the only problem is its amplitude is a little bit low, and there's only a little bit of rust on the hand. The crystals on both of these popped and shattered from the heat, and that's how they were ultimately, the movements were also affected. And then the water inside, for example, started to corrode those two hands. So the first thing I did when I got them was I put new crystals in them from Cousins, just so handling them or whatever, they'll be safe to handle. And then the other thing is there's this one, which is a Baume Mercier. The crystal's also gone from it. It's a quartz, ETA quartz movement, and it's totally dead. But I'm going to try to open it and clean the case first to experiment with the different chemicals I'll be using. And then, because it's also stainless steel. You might be wondering why I have this spirit lamp. The answer is because I tried to open this case before, and it seems like it's pretty much glued shut. So I think that the movement actually melted because it's a quartz movement. So it's and it's probably in a plastic movement holder. And the heat probably melted that and basically doesn't want to open. So I'm going to try to melt it again. This is, the tweezers are, what do you call it? Ceramic. Okay, it's hot. Oh, did that? Yeah. Excellent. Ready to see what happened? There you go. It's all melted. And this gasket probably melted as well. But that's great. So just want to check the dial. Definitely has some damage, but it doesn't look that bad if it's cleaned up. So that's interesting. Now, the other thing is, unless I somehow could get it from Baume Mercier, this plastic part that's melted will need to be reused because the movement needs to be held in place. But the first thing I'm going to do, even though it's very clear that this got water damage because the crystal came off and then presumably it got water from the fire department or whatever. Let's just remove this piece completely. I think that's a push point to pull the stem out. Yes. So you notice there's a little customization. The movement says Baume Mercier on it. Okay. Now, that's our clean, not clean, but that's the case. And this is the back. This back has a special gasket, square gasket, that actually looks like it's okay. The first thing I'm going to try for cleaning is just table vinegar. So table vinegar, slightly acidic. Q-tip. I have this nylon that one's brass, that one's steel. I think this is fiberglass and this is nylon. Okay, I'm going to try, even though there's not very much fiberglass left. So the interesting thing about this is that the fire damage does not seem to result in, on this case, doesn't result in any pitting or surface problem with the underlying steel. And that's kind of great. Okay, this is a little bit tough, and brass is softer than steel, so I just want to see what happens, because this is non-cosmetic area of the watch. The other thing that's good about this Baume Mercier case is that it can be polished and it's not going to soften anything up because it's already a soft design. Meaning these curves, these edges all have gentle curves. They're not like sharp edges. So if I do put some micro scratches in it, I can polish that out. That is fantastic. This is going to require some polishing. So the next thing, I think I'll try the strap on this, because if that cleans up, then we're in a good place. If you want to buy these brushes, I have a website, imakewatches.com, and there's a shop page, and you'll find that on here, along with lots of other goodies. Okay, so I let this soak overnight in vinegar, and I'm going to use a fiberglass brush just to check how loose it became. Okay, so the band cleaned up nicely. There's some little bits in between the links that will probably come out if I soak it again, throw it in the ultrasonic with the next, when I do the case. Just keep working on it. But it's obvious it's going to look great, and therefore so is the case. Now the next one I'm going to do is this one, because I want to get into the movement. And then the last one I'll do is this. So here you can see 2892 type A2 ETA, and I guess we'll take off the whole rotor assembly because I don't see a way to just take the rotor off. This is a very interesting movement for me because it's so perfect, even though it's been through a fire. It's so perfect that I really don't want to, scratch anything. So those blued screws, for example. So the key is to use the exact best size screwdriver. I've actually seen people use a little piece of, is that the right piece though? I've seen people use a little piece of plastic on top of the screw. I'm not sure which plate the rotor is attached to, so I'm going to grab something. These are 2892 parts that I got in a recent lot that I bought. And from this I should be able to find hopefully some bridge plates that give me an idea of what the plates are underneath the rotor. So this one is not connected to the rotor, and this one is. So the one with the 3 screw holes, the three smaller screws is not, but this one is. Oh, I just thought of something. Can the rotor, this looks like it needs a special tool to unscrew that. So the question then is, can the rotor plate come off? No, there's this screw over here. So Okay, good. So we can take this assembly off. So when I was trying this before, with the blower, I couldn't see if the pallet wheel was advancing or not. I suspect it was not. And it's not. So that means something is holding back the train of wheels. It doesn't necessarily mean that the train of wheels themselves are stuck, but it could easily be the second hand, which is goes the power for the second hand going into the whatever module is on top of this. So I think the next step will be just to remove the movement. And it's interesting, it looks like we know the dial is large. So it looks like we might have to take it out the dial side. So this stem release is the push type, right down in that hole. And it's designed so you can put a 1mm screwdriver on it and push in, and it keeps you from pushing too far. Okay, so you can see the whole, everything is moving when I do that. Which is expected. But the problem is the case, so the dial, I'm 99% sure the dial has to come out the front. Oh, wait. Yeah, because I could, I see the dial feet release here. This is the dial foot, and this is the release screw. And this is the dial foot. This is the dial foot, and this is the release screw. But the movement's still not going to come out because it has the hands on it. So we'll go like this. And now I need a suction cup. You can start to see how damaged those hands are from the fire. Now, I replaced the sapphire glass because it was, when I got these, the crystals were completely shattered and in pieces, and that's how water got in. But I replaced them, but I didn't glue them in. So I'm hoping I can lift the crystal straight out using a suction cup. Voila. Now that'll allow me to take the hands off, because the movement's not going to come out without the hands off it. But it also raises the question of maybe that ring inside does come out. It has to, because the dial's not going to come out the front. In any case, the hands have to come off. Now I've created a couple of problems. One is that I can't put the stem back in until I straighten the movement. Oh, it's running now. That is a very good sign. That is great news. Oh, this, I have to keep an eye on. I'll show you what I'm talking about in a second. I saw, thank goodness for video, because I saw a little piece of metal in there that I didn't know what it was. I thought it was to hold the hand, hold some tension on the hand or something. But check this out. Actually, I think it was to hold some tension on the hand. I think it's around this, it goes around this little thing here, and the top of the rotor holds it. So when we reassemble this will go back in here, but we'll save that for later. Let go. Okay, well, after I take the second hand off, it won't be so easy to explore this mystery. Just take a look at this. I see some corrosion on that. That's what I suspected, because this hand is so corroded. There's some corrosion on the the staff of that fourth wheel, which drives, oh well, but that's not even the fourth wheel, because that's a retrograde seconds. But whatever that is, it's gonna need some polishing. Okay, so the next thing I want to look at is this Baume Mercier. I actually have the correct movement for it, and it's not working, but it's almost working. So first of all, I wanted to say it's interesting. That's a ETA 980163, and and then the other thing is that I had a crystal for it, and the crystal wasn't exactly the right size, but it was very close. So I just flattened it a bit, took a little bit off the sides to make it work. And but the thing about that is that both of these, the crystal and the movement, came from lots of that I bought on Ricardo. So this is part of a huge lot that I bought of crystals. And then the other thing is this is the lot that I bought that the movement was part of, and it was in this box with these other quartz movements. And there's not a lot of quartz in this collection. So I was lucky that I happened to include that one. But the point of that is that it's very helpful for this kind of project to have a bunch of spare parts from these lots that I buy. Okay, so I wanted to, the first thing I wanted to do is show this movement that's not working and try to get it working. These only cost about $50 anyway, but it's faster since I have it, just to try to get this one working. when I first put this battery in, it was attempting to run. Yeah, there you can see it. So this battery is a little bit too small, but if I help it make contact, so you can see there, this motor should be moving forward. Instead, it was kind of fighting against something. Oh, that's funny. When I push down on it, it goes forward, and when I don't, it doesn't. What's up with that? Okay, there. Oh, it's fighting again. It's going backwards and forwards. Okay. Maybe it's just really hard to see, but the thing is, you can see it here. It's the second hand is struggling. I mean, the minute hand. It's skipping. The gear's bumping something and then it's bumping it back. Okay, so the whole point about that is that I wanted to show how sometimes with a quartz movement, a demagnetizer, particularly if it hasn't been used a long time, but this is probably a new movement, it was never used. Quartz demagnetizer can sometimes run it and force basically this coil is an electromagnet, right? And then there's one gear in the movement right here, probably this one, that has a permanent magnet built into it. And so when this electromagnet activates, which is done by the crystal in the chip to make it go every 1 second or whatever, when the electromagnet activates, the gear just moves a 1 second click or whatever. So what can happen when you turn on a demagnetizer, it shouldn't damage the movement, but it'll try to run, it'll just create magnetic fields that go a bit crazy from the point of view of that Levet motor. And if you have some like lubrication or some dust in the gears, it can break it out because it's so powerful. So that's going because of the magnetism. And then we can look and see if that had any effect. Okay, I see something interesting here. This wheel is not lined up in the jewel, this pivot. It's out of place. So, is it this one? Is it something internal? I need to try to reset that wheel. And I could take the whole thing apart, but I'm just looking if there's any easy way to do that. Oh man, that's the seconds hand wheel. It looks like it's been cut off. The seconds hand pivot looks like it's been cut off. Because this has a small seconds, right? So that's another problem. I might have to steal that wheel from this movement. So there's two things that we need to do. To make this movement work, I need to disassemble it enough to reset this wheel that's under here, that jewel right there. And then before I do that, I need to take the small seconds pinion out of this movement to try to salvage it, because probably somebody was going to use this in a watch that didn't have a small seconds, and this was in the way, and they cut it with some cutter. Ooh, you can see that's pretty rusty too, the one that we need. You can also see there's this Baume Mercier plate here that we can probably salvage and put on this one. Okay. These are our dial feet. I want to rotate it down till it opens. By down I mean clockwise, screwing the screw in, because that goes down, and then when we come up we'll have a different movement at that point, but you want it to come up and pull the dial snug. Don't want to break the dial feet. Okay. Now this is fun because this movement, I probably have a holder for this. Let's see. Five and a half. I could push this can be screwed in to raise the height of the center support. It's still going to rock. In this holder, it's still going to rock like this. So I want to see if there's another holder this size. That's the only one I have that's 5 1/4. Okay, still not good, so let's try a generic holder. I think the first thing I'll do is to try to take this. It's a little bit too fat. I think I did something with that screwdriver where I needed a fat blade. It's kind of silly to try to save that plate anyway. Okay, so you can clean and save this little badge. Now the only other thing we need from this is that wheel right there, pinion. this guy, which then will need to be de-rusted. And it looks pretty bad. And we can also inspect, while we're at it, what's under here, because that's going to be an issue in the other movement, in the good movement. There's the chip and everything. I need a little place to dump these parts. This screw is providing a lot of resistance. Oh, let's look at this. This is the jewel that I think has a misaligned wheel under it in the other watch, which would be this wheel. But maybe it was this one. In which case it would actually be that. Oh yeah, it's actually this one. But this screw is providing a lot of resistance. So I'm going to try it one more time, but I don't want to break the head off of it. Let's see, if I did break the head off of it, I would just break it completely off and then lift this plate up. Let's take this out also. Let's give us familiarity with this movement. And also, I really don't want to do this on the other one, but I might have to. There's the Levette motor wheel. This is the one with the magnet in it. But this plate's not too crazy. If I had to take this off on the other movement to clean and lubricate it, I could. So I'm curious, you know, what the strength of this screw head. This looks stronger than the other one. I'm wondering if it'll break. It gave way. Kind of. Oh, there's our coil. Oh, look at, so this is interesting. I'm trying to do this screw right, but my screwdriver is already that damaged. And I think I prepped these screwdrivers, so I can go up slightly bigger and get a fresh start on this. I'm still going to be gentle because it's still stuck and it could still easily break. Starting to bend this screwdriver also. So I have an idea, because My concern is this. First of all, this wheel is in terrible condition. I'm probably not going to be able to use it, but it has a pivot on this side that we need intact. So I don't want to break the screw off and have to leverage this whole bridge off and then potentially break a screw or a pivot that's already extremely rusty. What I want to do is just remove this screw head, and twisting and everything is just going to break. I can try until it breaks, but then I'll file it off after it breaks. No way that gear is going to be usable though. Never know. So the next thing I need is a file to get that head off there. Small files here. This is what happens when you pit hardened steel file against not hardened steel screw head. Screw head loses. Okay, that should be enough. There you go. This is the wheel we want to salvage. Yeah, looks great. Okay, that goes to the garbage eventually. But for now, maybe we need it for a spare part. Now I have vinegar here from my previous derusting. You don't really know what you're dealing with until you do this in terms of damage to those teeth. That rust could be primarily from a different source or it could be from this gear itself. This is a fiberglass brush. It's looking pretty good except for the gear teeth. And only in this one area. I just see some rust between teeth. I think I should call that done for now. And then I need to decide how to further clean it. So I think this is rebuildable. After I get this really cleaned up well, I might have to run it through the cleaning machine. I could ultrasonic it in watch cleaning fluid instead of running it through a whole cleaning cycle. But for now, I want to look at something else. And that's the hands for this guy. So I took the hands off, put the crystal back on, cleaned the back, started cleaning it, and put everything back together again. And this one's running. I put a drop of HP 1300 on the rusty, well, not on the, yeah, on the, basically some water went in here because the crystal broke, and a little bit of water went in this, but not nearly as much as the Baume Mercier, I would say, because I didn't see any water damage inside. But when I removed the hands, which had some water damage, I saw some rust on the pivot for this retrograde seconds hand. And that rust, I put some HP 1300 on it because it'll dissolve the rust. It'll also lubricate it because that pivot goes straight into a jewel from the dial side. But the hands need to be re-blued, and before they're re-blued they need to be polished, and before they're polished they need to be derusted. So actually they could go into the vinegar solution also. You know what? I have the vinegar costs 45 cents. I'm going to restock this clean vinegar. So first, these are the two hands that are the worst. I'm going to do all three, but I'm going to start with the worst. So this is the seconds hand. Get a little bit wider. Now clearly this hour hand was blue. The seconds hand, I'm going to drop that in the vinegar. The seconds hand, I want to make sure it was blue so I don't blue something that was not blue. It's very hard to tell. So we might have to refer to, if I refer to this other watch, this is definitely blue. This one hasn't been touched. It also needs some work. But I would say that was blue also, but okay, and then the brush I liked was this. This brush is about 15 years old or older, and it was actually for back when iPhones were capacitive touch or something. It was for using an iPhone when you have gloves on, and I'm kind of shocked to see that it's actually metal. Now that's the bottom of it, but it's easy just to grab that. clean that off first. Okay, I think I'm just going to go ahead and do this minute handle. So the second hand I didn't do the top yet because I'm going to do that on the metal plate because it has that long staff. Okay, so here you can kind of see that's the tops of them cleaned, but they're still pitted. So at least they're clean now. The next problem is to polish. Let's start with seconds hand because it can be anchored quite easily here. And then I prepared some 1000 grit sandpaper because I don't have an emery board. This is a homemade emery board. And then see if I can take out some of that pitting. Can't do too much of that with this rough system because there's a rivet on top of that. Gonna clean this again. Where'd that go? Okay, same thing. So let's take a look at these hands for the Baume Mercier. Interesting, that looked like it was pitted, but it's just oil and muck. The problem is it's about to break off at the base there, and if it breaks, I don't know how to fix it. It's going to look a bit weird if it's not bent back, but bending it back is going to break it. You know what's happening? This hand is so lightly plated that the cleaning using this metal thing is removing the silver, whatever's giving it that silver color. So I need to use something more gentle. That was the bottom side. Uh-oh. Is that a stain, or is that like the... That's all the silver came off. That sucks. I have a large collection of hands, but I've never seen a hand that simple before. Okay, so the ultrasonic did finally pretty much got it as clean as it's going to be. And I put it in this micrometer just to show. The problem is it's going to keep collecting dirt. But basically the next step is, you know, this is where the seconds hand attaches right here. So that doesn't have to be polished, but this part goes through a jewel and this tip sits in a jewel. So those two parts have to be polished, those two pivots. So, and you can look here at the, I'm pretty sure that these gear teeth will mesh fine with whatever gear is in the movement. There's no big chunks of anything solid there. So the next thing is to try to keep everything secure all the time so I don't accidentally lose something. Okay, so I want to try. This is hard to do under the microscope, so let's try. Let me see if I'm going to be able to run this thing. Microscope is not really getting it. Okay, that's going to be great. Holy crap. The one thing is, why is this? Okay. Okay, so I measured the pivot, and it's 0.2. Now this thing is 0.2 millimeters, so I need to adjust this. I think you said it's 20 is at the top for 0.2. And then, so we're going to try to lay the longer pivot here and put the smaller pivot here at the beginning. Push these up and then push these down to try to grip it somehow. You know, this whole thing is for quartz movement, which is kind of funny. And it's also, that looks way too big. That's way too big, right? Maybe it's 0.2, not 20. I don't know. Oh, man. So anyway, this is a quartz movement, never designed to be serviced in the first place, really. Once I get into that, like, why would anybody service a movement that costs $50? They wouldn't. But for me, it's just opportunity for some fun. So much fun. Okay. I need to get this guy closer. Why? That's just the cap on this. Well, maybe I'll do it from this side. $20. All right, we'll try it. It's wrong, but we'll try it anyway. There's a little bit of magnetism there, which is great. think this needs to go a little bit closer. Now this is what I want. I don't see how I'm gonna get that thing to turn with those teeth, because it's not made for this. So there's a screw here to adjust. What's that? I guess that's to lock that. No. Yeah, that locks the whole piece in there. But I can also just drive it forward like this. And then drive it forward. Drive it back. Oopsie daisy. Drive it forward. Okay. Now that may cause enough friction. See, that turns that. All right, so I need a burnishing tool. I got a few different burnishing tools at this point. What happened? Got around this screw the wrong way. Okay. It's going just as planned. Normally this should be clamped into the bench. This is so dangerous. I need to use a little bit too much pressure on the bow here. So it's not sitting. It's definitely not the right sized thing for it there. So let's try to figure out what's going on there. The smallest here is this one at the top, which says 15. So let's try that. Uh-oh. What happened there? Okay, I'm going to give up on this because this is kind of past my limit in terms of skills and size. I feel like it did get polished a bit, but the other side is going to be even more difficult because this side, at least, there is this long pivot. On the other side, the pivot's like extremely short. So I'm going to try to do this with a different technique. Lucky that thing is magnetized, or it would have flown away just now. Okay, let's put this away. The other way to polish a pivot is with these little polishing things, extra fine, medium, coarse, fine, coarse, medium. Let's try that. So these are like little flat rubbery things. Let's see how it scales, how it looks in relation to the thing we want to do here. So the idea behind this is that you just poke the pivot into it and turn. So let's try. Try the small one because it'll be a little bit safer. So we're going to drop this into a hole like this. Might not be big enough. That one's kind of dirty. Okay. Now, can I put this in my pin vise? And it's going to work. I just need to stabilize the workpiece with the tweezers. Wow, it's working great. Might even be too aggressive. So I'm gonna call that done because that's a kind of medium grit or coarse grit. Turn this over. Try to do the other side. Now, because that's like a rubbery material, it can just kind of go in there. That worked great. It's even starting to clean the gear down there. Oh. Oops, I broke it. Not the workpiece, but the polishing thing. I'm worried it's too coarse to continue, so I need to go to something finer. Green, fine, soft. So this one's green. I've marked it fine, soft. I want to make it even shorter so it's less likely to break. Okay. Do the other end of it. Okay, so our gear is ready. Try to keep that hair off it. Ready for installation. It's good to have a couple different ways of doing things. And I did this on purpose. A long time ago when I started studying pivot polishing, I could see from... Oh, it's not that close. I could see the Jacot tool, which is this thing, was difficult even with larger wheels and pinions, pivots. And I mean, this thing is so ridiculously tiny. So the rubber things are great. Okay, the next thing I wanted to look at is the dial. You know, on the Baume Mercier, the dial was exposed to water because the whole movement was rusted out and the water went in through the dial. So we can kind of presume that the dial is going to be okay with some distilled water cleaning. I could be wrong, but that's how I'm going to go about it. If I didn't have that, if I didn't know it had been exposed to the water in the aftermath of the fire, which I don't know, but I know it from the rust in the old movement, right? I would be very cautious about cleaning this dial at all. But because of that, I'm going to get some distilled water, give it a shot. This is just grocery store distilled water. And it's mostly so you don't leave mineral residue, which normal water would contain. Okay, I think that's fine. The rest of that seems to be baked on. I would say after going through a fire, it's not too bad. So you know what I should do actually is clean the back of this too. So the next thing is to try. Oh, I have the old movement. I wanted to check the height of the. I was reading the specs on this movement. I want to make sure that the hands are the same height on these, on the old and the new movement. Looks the same. I would say it's the same. And the next problem is to disassemble the movement. Try to correct this. Oh, actually, we can look. This one's in a different orientation. So the problem on this movement is that the pivot that should be in the center of this hole is not there, and it's jammed in there somehow. So that belongs to this wheel. And I'm not going to do any more with this because if I break that jewel, then I might come back and take that from that movement. But I'm anticipating that has to be reset, that wheel, if the pivot is not actually broken. You can see if you look at the jewel, right by where it says V8, this movement is struggling to turn. It goes forward, then back, and then stops, and then right now it's stopped. But the reason is because that wheel, which is under here, is misaligned, so nothing can move. It can just move within the slack of the gear train, I think. Although, we'll see. There might be. Yeah, actually, there's a whole problem. The problem is under here. Now, if I take the board, the printed circuit board off, I guess it's got electrical contacts. There's a good chance this can destroy the movement, but basically there's something wrong with the plate under here. It's touching this wheel, so it's not seated correctly, and that's because the wheel is not seated correctly. So like I said, I don't believe this movement was ever intended to be serviced. It's just fun to try to do it because I had it on hand and just to put my skills to the test. I should work on my screwdriver a bit. Okay, those contacts are just based on the screws. Here you can see in dramatic form the problem right here. I could just try to seat it by pushing down, but there's a danger I'll break something. So instead, I'm going to loosen this. I also have to replace that wheel, the one that we polished. So might as well try to remove this. Oh man, that looks like it's almost as long as the one I have, but it's not. There's no way. So let's see. This is so much fun. I love it. Okay, I'm going to try to pull this back. Okay. Is that the wrong screw? I don't think so. Okay. Okay, here comes the test. So you can see basically it's running forward here. So it's working, and we got our second hand is now tall enough to support the hand. That's our part that we put in. I don't know why I say we. Okay. Next, the crystal. Before reassembling this, I'd like to waterproof the crystal. So this crystal, I had in a lot of crystals that I bought, I had one that was very similar, but it wasn't perfect. So it is very good in the sense that it's firmly in there. But the points where it contacts around the edges need to have some transparent UV curable adhesive on them. And that should, at least when I'm done, I can test to see if it's waterproof. I guess the other thing I should check if the crown is capable of being waterproof. Doesn't feel too tight. Which it could be that the crown gasket is shot. Doesn't have to be extremely tight, but it has to be there. And I could try to put a different crown gasket on there. Looks like, yeah, that doesn't look like it has a gasket at all. Oh, it looks like the gasket's right there. It's probably pretty close to waterproof. And then I remember on the case back, there's also a gasket. So I think it can be pretty water resistant when it's assembled with some silicone. So this is 2000 grit diamond knife sharpening block from AliExpress. You can find the links to these on my website. They're useful for a lot of things. Okay, there's a tiny bit of bowing, and it's coming from the corners. Okay, pretty sure that's going to do it. Okay, so I'm going to use this UV curable glass glue to glue the crystal in. Okay, the reason I'm sloppy is because the glue will start to cure. But what I'm going to do is snap this in and then clean up any excess. So that's a UV light, which will harden the glue. Okay. Ugh. Actually, let's put this here. And then the next thing I want to do Oh, jeez. Oh, man. Okay, I want some shots of me crawling around on the floor anyway. So the plan here is to try to heat this hand up so much that the metal is pretty soft, and then try to fix that bend in it without breaking it. So this thing's 400 degrees Celsius. Gotta try not to burn myself. Ow. Ah. Okay, that's that. It was pretty obvious that that was going to happen. So I had on standby an extra hand. Where's that? Similar. The problem is it's a little bit too tall. I think that's going to look fine. Sucks. Okay, so now I've put this back in its case. This one is finished. Looks great. This one is also finished. And the last thing is this one. The hands need to be blued still. So I previously sanded down the hands with 1000 grit sandpaper, and I'm gonna just try to polish it with diamond polishing paste now. There's some pitting that I may want to go back and sand it some more. So this is, let's see what this is. 2 to 4 micrometer diamond polishing paste from Bijoutil. That's what's in the syringe. And then I have a leather buff, which I used already on the hand in the Baume Mercier. So I have an idea, which is to use the that grinding or polishing, pivot polishing cylinder. The problem is, because of that rivet, it's hard to polish the top of that. I can polish it, but it's got such deep hitting. This should be isopropyl. So this is my bluing setup. This is a spirit lamp. I think I bought it at my Salvation Army. I can't remember now. But the it has ethanol. So it's like a cleaning alcohol, not isopropyl though. And some brass shavings that distribute the heat. Let's do the hour hand first. The first color it's going to turn is kind of straw color, yellowish. So until it does that, it's not critical. As soon as it does that, it starts to change through the rainbow pretty quickly. Also, last time I did this, the brass started to smoke because it has some, there you go. Probably has some cutting oil or something in there. Not a whole lot, but. Okay, I'm starting to get the yellow. It's almost going blue. Okay. I need a, here. Let's do the hour hand. Oh, that scared me. Okay, I think that's good. I just have to try to tweeze left-handed. I can't tweeze left-handed. Okay. Now the thing is, a nice distribution of the brass helps. Using the spirit lamp it's kind of good actually. It takes so much time that it gives you time to make choices. Slow process, but you get to pick the color. The problem is the hour hand got a bit too purple. Okay. Now that stuttering is because there's some rust in there. That's a tough one. So taking the bezel off will allow me to take the movement out of the case, take the dial off, and then figure out if there's some rust on the retrograde seconds. So you can see here the bezel remover is positioned right above a lug. Let me see if that's... I think that'll do it. We'll see. There we go. So there's the watch without the bezel. So now I got to take the back off again. The retrograde module might be held on by dial feet. So first we'll take the dial feet to the dial. Voila. That's crazy. I expected to immediately see rust because of that stopping, the hands stopping. I don't see any. Except for, oh, actually, yeah, that's interesting. It's going to be, huh. I guess we could watch it run a little bit. So it's interesting, the seconds, power for the seconds is coming up here. I'm guessing the problem is actually this dirt around this pivot for the hand. But the other things I find suspicious are the spring seems to be touching the gear right there. Which can't be good. And the spring seems to be, I'm not sure if that matters, but it's not very well, like it's not centered well. If it was a hairspring, that would be a problem because it looks like it's stuck to itself. I think we can correct that by pulling it down like that. That also got it off of that gear. So here's one clue. This is coming up. This is seconds, power for the seconds coming up. This is a 60-second process because you've got 2 times 30 here. So the only place where you have an actual 30-second process that could have been stopping it every 30 seconds at 27 and 15, the only place really could be on this rack gear under here, because that's the only 15-second process. Sorry, 30-second process. So even though it seems to be working right now, I think that the place to look, I do think I should take off this plate and look at the rack, look at the cleanliness and rust, potential rust on that traveling rack right there. Let's let it run for a little bit, see if it stops again first though. Yeah, so it stopped. Now that also would suggest that if I help it a bit, it should continue. So to help it, I would go like this. So even though it's running now, we've got to take a look at this traveling rack thing. Okay, so when I lift this, oh, I can use the hacking seconds function to stop it. Oh, but the hack fell. Where's the hack? Because I took the rotor off, the hack is no longer functioning. And it's missing. But I have spares. It's still an interesting question where it went. I don't think it's on the rotor because I saw it after I moved the, I thought I saw it after I moved the rotor away. So that's strange because typically I don't think I even got up. Okay. I flipped it over. I removed the rotor right here. Oh, there it is. That's crazy. Actually, this should be stored. Well, actually, maybe I should put the rotor back on. Because that'll hold that. So then I can... Yeah, because right now I should be careful. I've got that plate. Unscrewed. Let's do that. So that needs to be like that. Okay, this time the hack should work. Okay, so that'll allow us to flip it over again. So the point is, stop it using hacking. Let's say stop it at, ooh, stop by itself. How convenient. No, that's a joke. That means the problem is still there, which is good because it was running pretty well. Notably, in the dial down position, it had the problem. So now I've stopped it. I want to lift this plate. What's going to happen with that spring? Okay, the plate should come off, leaving everything in place. Because the spring is attached to the stud. Man, I don't think anybody could actually see this. So that spring is attached to that stud, and that stud is coming up from the base plate. So when I lift this plate, I want to lift it off of both of those pivots, and everything else should stay down. The spring, both of these two red treated powels, or whatever you want to call them. If they try to come up, then I'm going to stop them from coming up, or I'm going to back off the lifting. I'm not sure why that sprung. But this is what I'm talking about. I don't want this to lift off. So I want to kind of lift it over that pinion or whatever. There we go. Okay, that plate. Can examine that. Well, let's examine that right now. Because ultimately, I want to see what the problem was. I don't see any problem with this plate. This is the oil that I just put on it. There's no broken jewel. Now this is where it might get interesting. There's a tiny something here, but it's hard to imagine that that's a problem. I don't see any problem with this. Now I'm going to try to put this back together. I just want to test that it works with the hand on it. Oh, forgot to set it at 30. I want to connect it when it gets to 30. So the only thing I can figure out is that there's a point when this gear rack is kind of in the center, but it happens to correspond with about 27 seconds on the retrograde seconds hand. There's a point where it's too close to a gear tooth on the gear that's driving the seconds hand, and so it just doesn't want to pass that spot. And the problem is the spring is sorry, the spring is it's like soldered onto the gear, and over here doesn't really matter over here, because the issue is, in order to modify that gear, which would be in theory the easiest thing to do, the problem is the spring is in the way. So I'm going to take one more look at that, but the only other thing I think I could try as an experiment is to bend this arm down slightly so that it's at the bottom of the gear, and it may, putting a bend in it may help if the thick part of the gear is higher on the gear itself, and that can only be tested through experimentation. So that's a big wire, but Okay, I put a very slight downward bending. Okay, that's insane, but I think I got it. Alrighty. Not even slowing down. Boom. I think I got it. Okay, I think I've got it. Okay, so for the recasing, Okay. Uh, Okay, it's like 45 seconds late per day, which means it needs regulated, but I'm not going to do that right now. Okay, so the way this works is the spring goes on there. No, come on. Just please, just stop. Oh. What's the date today? 24. Okay, I just wanted to polish this date hand a little bit. Retrograde date. Okay, so that's it. Baume Mercier Hampton, Pierre Kunz Spirit of Challenge, 2 watches from the same series. They share a serial number. They are both working perfectly now. Repolished, cleaned the hands. In some cases I diamond polished the date hand here, which is silver. It's actually stainless steel, but silver color. I polished and reblued all 3 hands on this one. Cases cleaned up really well just using vinegar and ultrasonic cleaning and scrubbing with fiberglass and brass brushes. Same goes for this one and the bracelet. Fiberglass and brass brushes, ultrasonic cleaning, soaking in table vinegar. That's the key. And then just a little bit of maintenance on the movements just to get them running. All right, I hope you enjoyed that, and thanks for watching.